back to the podcast.
Showing him. So I chide him, and later on in the same interview, right, so your mum's there, what are you going to do? Oh, sure, I will, I'll tell her. And he winds himself up. Now, that's what you need. You need courage to face down the demons from the past. Because all the 50 murderers I worked with all killed a parental figment. They didn't. People say, first of all, you ask them, and they have no idea. They give guff. Oh, well, the red mist came down. Oh, well, he had it coming. No, rubbish. It's a parental figment or somebody who stands in lieu of a parental figment.
Somebody who abused them.
Somebody who's either did the abusing or is exposing them to the abuse again, whatever it is. I mean, if you go on to Harold Shipman eventually, if I'd had a chance to poke him about, I would find that somewhere in his past, he was terrified of a strong female figure. So therefore, his remedy was to kill strong female figures. That's how the thing was manifesting itself, and how it would stop manifesting itself if I'd said, look, what you do with these strong friends, just hold your hand and say, go away. I'm an adult. You can't do that anymore. I don't know what it was. And you can't be specific what it was. Sometimes it's something that other people wouldn't notice. But the child thinks, this is the end. And they close down. I've recently called it sort of an emotional anaphylactic shock. It's like an allergy. You go funk, and your just as your antibodies attack you when you have anaphylaxis to some allergen, this is a self-defense mechanism that's gone wrong. You go crunch, and your frontal lobes go offline. Your speech center goes offline. You cannot talk. You cannot think. You cannot verbalize. And it's the verbalizing that does it. I've got this book out now called Verbal Physiotherapy, which you go in and say, how much can you manage? Oh, well, I can manage a bit. Fine. Do you think they should do this? You put it in gentle terms, and then you gradually, so that you get to the stage with Lenny. I mean, it was wonderful because he changed. I started in July. I managed to get around John Marriott, the governor, to take the video camera in September, and by November, Lenny was out the other side. I said, okay, and I've got dialogue of the 11th, November the 11th interview. I say, okay, Lenny, your mother's coming across to hit you. What are you going to say? Now, if I'd said that to begin with, he could well have exploded, could have stopped me violently or whatever, but he had to stop the conversation. But so when I'm confident. So I said, okay, Lenny, your mother's coming across. What are you going to say? Because I'm a nice middle-class chap, and I expect them to say, I wouldn't say anything. I'd just hold her hand. Total confidence. You can't do that anymore, Mum. I'm an adult. Reality. And the whole thing's gone. His violence has gone. His dis-ease, his unease has gone. He's calm, he's collected, and he's through.
And he's off all the psychiatric drugs he was on.
Wow.
In February, I started...
Violence goes down, the drugs go down.
I started working in July. In the February, he tried to come off this fortnightly injection. So when I came in, I said, so what medication are you on? I'm on this injection. Don't take it off, doctor. No, I took that off in February. Oh, I'm terrible. No, don't stop that. Oh. So I said, Charlie, you're in charge. Whatever you say, I'll keep prescribing it until you agree to come off. So it came off. And there's a contrast. You see the video in September, and he's just a little bit slurred. Not a lot, just a little bit. And then November, it's gone. He stopped the drugs, stopped everything.
So, with the time it takes to bond, for example, with Maudsley,
right?
How do you know the bond is established enough to start looking at the box together?
You set up little feelers. Little feelers, you say. So what would you say if somebody else did something or other? Put it in third person. You get skilled at bringing up little bits, and you watch how he reacts. And if he buys a bit, I mean, he's actually very, very good. I mean, I think I've got a bit of his dialogue here.
Yeah, give us an example. That'd be great.
It's interesting. I needed to see, so I sat and looked at some of the videos, and I described what I actually saw as, and an amazingly intense experience. It's truth, trust, and consent. That was the sort of soup in which it all swam. If that wasn't there, they couldn't even begin to start nibbling away at it. And yeah.
I mean, for example, here, I've numbered the lines and I've just taken them fairly at random because I don't want to breach clinical confidentiality, but these are in his favour, so I justify that. So here, line 15. Hang on there, though, Bob. We're still going too fast. He's warning me, you see. Because what you want you to do, you're wanting to get into the room and feel the emotions of the child wanting to do that. But we realise there are certain hazards in actually doing that. But how will we still get there, right? So he sees how going too fast has riled him up. And yet it's very clear what we're about. And he knows he can't yet do it.
He's engaged.
See, we're on a joint project. So here's line 23, Maudsley. It's going well. Me, yes, it is, isn't it? It's going well, he says. And then line 29. This is incredible, this one. I'm able to talk about things a lot more things today than I was able to, 6 or 9 months ago. That's gold. Wow. That's solid gold. And then line 36, Dr. Bob. What I say is I get the rational mind to sort out the irrational mind. And that's basically today's reality sorting out yesterday's or childhood reality. Now, that's an intellectual challenge. It's a rational challenge. And he buys it. He buys it. And this is line 39. He says, and I think that's quite good, quite powerful, Bob, in terms of some, it's inaudible, that bit. You can turn around and say, okay, quite a lot of bad things have happened to us, and we've done quite a lot of bad things, bad things, etc. But at the end of the day, this is incredible. You should come clean with our consciousness and our spirit and our souls to the extent we can turn around and say, okay, let's be reborn again and go through all the experiences we've done out the other end, right at the end. And be satisfied, like you're saying, Bob, like that there are no blocks, that we don't turn around and say, oh, well, that period was particularly nasty, let's forget about it. Now, that's him summarising it.
Wow.
You can see how it works.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what happened was that the prison service saw him changing, shipped him out. Yes.
He's now in a glass cage.
He said to me, the story was that he was going on a 12-week holiday and they'd bring him back. But they lied. They had no intention of bringing him back.
So the trust is shattered at that point, is it?
Well, no. I mean, I'd treat him now. I'd treat him today. But the system couldn't take the idea that Maudsley was getting better. And now he's in a glass cage in Wakefield, 6 officers on lock.
And is he able to communicate with you through the mail?
He, not with me, but I think his brother gets in touch. And I'm in contact with his nephew, Gavin. And we have a joint wish for a documentary to uncover all this. Because I've got 4 hours of audio. 4 hours of audio of my sessions, which I've just taken the extract from. And I was moving on to video with his consent. I hadn't got there. And one of the audio recorders said, well, you can see the lens cap is on, so there's no video, but the little red lights showing that comes out. And he agreed. I mean, I'm not moving without consent. I mean, that was absolutely rock solid. And looking back, what the consent does is to empower them. It's what I would call now agency. They've never been asked permission before. They've been said, do this, do that, do the other. And prisons, of course, are doing that all the time. Prison destroys agency. And unless they've got agency, they can't stop doing bad things. But once they've got agency, I don't need that. I don't need the violence. I don't need the addiction. I don't need whatever it is. Once they've got the agency. And so what's happened with the child trauma, the child abuse, the childhood neglect, whichever way you want to put it, is lack of agency in the adult. lack of self-esteem, self-confidence, self-empowerment. They don't believe it. They've never been taken seriously. I mean, I'm an important doctor, lots of qualifications, and I'm taking them seriously. I'm sitting there and say, you want to come and see me? No. Fine, that's all right. Yeah, one chap walked around for 6 months. You coming to see me? No. Fat chance. And what doctors normally do is say, treatment resistant, patient refuses to comply with the medical rules. No, nothing. And he wanted to make sure that didn't happen. And then I'll go and see him. You come to see me again? Somebody see me? Yes. What? So he came every week, and he revealed the most gross abuse. His father threw him out of the window, and but he stuck to it, and he came every week, and we started. And then later, this chap I'm talking about now, he said, "If I hadn't been talking to you, I'd have killed 3 times on this wing." And he got a history of killing in the prison before. And I said, 3 corpses? No, only 1. And there was this little squid of a prisoner. I shouldn't call him that. But he didn't, because his anger against his father, which would have come out in his murderousness, had gone. He'd opened the door, he opened the box, and the box was now empty.
But what an indictment of the prison service. It spent the last 30 years creating special cages for these men that Bob was treating. And waste of resources, waste
that
of
must be £500,000
waste
a
of
year. Six officers on lock.
terrible for the prison officers that have to look after them in such terrible conditions. Terrible for the men themselves. Terrible for society. Total waste of money. Total waste of resources. Total indictment of an approach. And
I would go and sit in with Maudsley today.
So people who are watching this then, who trust the government and trust the system, are perhaps wondering at this point, what would the motive be if you were getting a serial killer to not be violent and not have to need medication and become a more peaceful person? What would the motive be for the system to take that person away from you and then for his tendencies to flare back up, for example?
I'm surmising, but sort of jealousy in a way. They've got the systems for dealing with dangerous people, so they have to keep the dangerous bit sort of macho on the part of some of the members of the government. But I also have to say that the psychiatrists are dead against anything that cures a psychopath.
Why is that?
Well, there was a prison inspector's report, Her Majesty's Inspector of Prisons, came round, and lots of preparation in Parkhurst, October 94. And the psychiatrist associated with that agreed to see me on the Wednesday, pulled me out of a meeting on the Tuesday, pulled rank, and said, the idea is doing any good. It's totally anecdotal. Right? And the prisons inspector report came out, and I was the only person named, and I was slagged off brutally. And other parts of the report said the prisoners on C Wing, it's very good here. We're getting a good time. We can do all these things. Dr. Johnson has to be reprimanded for doing A, B, and C. Has to be put on a contract and all this sort of stuff. And later, I was looking through the hospital library, and this man had written this book on psychopaths. And even later, again, when the Royal College of Psychiatry was formed in 1973, he had agitated for a forensic branch, which was later established, on the basis that psychopaths are totally incurable. And here they were changing. If you looked around, the fact is that in the prison, if somebody's violent or threatened violence, you ring the alarm bell. And because C Wing was a special unit and they had research, they sent the psychologist over every month to, say, document what had happened. So she wrote down assaults, 3 alarm bells, diddly. And then she got bored because the last 3 years, there were no alarm bells. On average, there were 20 alarm bells every year. And she said, well, I'm bothered coming over. But that proves if you take the waiting list control, which is what it is, 7 years, there's 20 alarm bells every year. And the last 3 years, 0. None. This is a maximum security wing, people too dangerous for Broadmoor, and no violence. So you have to have a particularly blind government and policy and Home Secretary to see that.
I was just going to say that the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, where it identifies personality and psychopathic disorders. I think they call it disorder of personality that they're born with. So this is a medicalisation of the born evil mantra. And so the two get colluded. Collusion. There's a collusion. They reinforce one another. And I must say as well, there's a sort of popular idea that there are certain categories of person that are just born evil, and what can you do? What we found, really, that there are things you can do. That people are born sociable, lovable, non-violent, tiny babies. They're not born with a personality disorder.
Jump in there. As a doctor, you go into a situation and you try very, 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 very hard to change people, and they say, get lost. You get nowhere at all. You say, well, that's not my fault, it's their fault. In fact, when we were medical students, it was a joke that the doctor would make the diagnosed psychopath when his treatment wasn't working. And that's writ large. So you can understand the frustration of a well-intentioned doctor going in there, going through the front door, and the person is blocking, as I've described. You can access it by going through the side door, but you cannot do it the front door. You say, well, what was your childhood like? Lovely. It was a lovely childhood. But underneath, that's because they're not telling themselves. Like this woman, I was 9 months talking about childhood, since she never mentioned the one significant thing. And that was my breakthrough. The fact is that the lesion, the pathology, is the blockage. I mean, what happened 20, 50, or in one case, 80 years ago? One of my patients was 82. What happened 80 years ago should have faded, but it hasn't, because it's never been processed. And the reason it's not been processed, it was too frightening. Too frightened to think about, unaided. Now that's the key, unaided. So my task was to show I'm here, I understand, I'm not frightened of your dad or your mum, or I'm not frightened of what happened, and I'm not going to abuse you, I'm not going to, all these things. And if you give them the aid, in that sense, emotional support, then they open up. And underneath you find that we're actually a social species. Homo sapiens exists and is not extinct so far because they have cooperate, they work together, and they plan together.
So you're saying then, out of all of your cases, none of them were born evil. They were going after parental figments or people who'd abused them. It was all to do with trauma. There wasn't just anyone purely born evil, had a great upbringing by the parents, but then turned into a serial killer.
It's not possible.
It's not possible.
It's not possible. It's not possible. It's not possible to do that. And one of the ones that was particularly instructive, and also a very dangerous man, I call him Alec.
Oh yeah.
And I call him Alec. And he came in. He was 24 when he first came in. And he didn't want to come to Sea Wing. He'd heard about the murder there, and it was a very dangerous place. He wasn't going to go to Sea Wing. And as luck would have it, he was seen in reception by a prison officer I'd had a lot of talk with about what I was working at. And I call him Colin, the officer, and he understood the way I worked. And so he said, it's by consent. This is maximum security prison. He's coming in. Take me to the sec unit. Take me to the solitary confinement block. Oh, says Alec, I'm not going in there. And he would have come in the unit and been off again and done something to insist, because that's what they do. I mean, they know how the system works. They'd have punched an officer or something like that and have got himself. So he was persuaded to come in. And he said, you don't have to come and talk if you don't want to. Now that is revolutionary. And Colin had learned that from my technique. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. He told him this. So that reassured Alec that it would be fine. So when he first comes in, unfortunately by that time, this is 18 months into my time there, I'm videotaping everybody who will agree. So all of Alec's sessions with me are all on videotape. So in the first session, very revealing. He says, well, I made no secret of the fact I'm going to kill again in prison. He'd already killed in prison. I'm going to kill again in prison, and part of me wants to kill. And as long as it wants to, I will let it. I will kill every 2 years. When you're falling asleep, you plan your next holiday. When I'm falling asleep, I plan the next murder. And they'll move me on. And so 2 years later, I'll kill somebody else. I'll kill again, I'll kill again, kill again. I'm not going to stop that. Part of me wants to do it, I will let it. So I discussed his father with him. Nothing. Discussed his mother, nothing. Ding, 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 ding. You're coming next week? Oh, all right. Oh, all right. So gradually, about sort of 12 months in, I went too far. I said, well, what about your mother? So he stopped coming. It was all by appointment, right? I was very proud of that. You've got a maximum security wing. They can't go anywhere else. I make an appointment, 11 o'clock. There's nowhere else to go. Or they don't make the appointment. So he stopped making appointments. So that was his consent, his agency to do that. And I thought, just a minute. And then the rumors started going around that he was garroting his pillow, preparatory to garroting me. So what his plan was, so they said, was that he would suddenly start saying, yes, I'll come and see you again. And as I turned to put my video camera on, which he knew I would do, he would garrote me. So I didn't like the sound of that, as you can imagine. And so I asked around, we had a meeting in the morning of all the admin heads, and I asked the chief probation officer, how serious should I take it? Very seriously, he said. So I went to see the governor. Unfortunately, it was the deputy governor then, not John Marriott. It was deputy governor, who had more agency in a sense, had more imagination. So I said, I don't even like walking down the wing to get myself a cup of tea. Something has to be done. He said, oh, well, I've got a Cat A van going out next week. I'll ship him out next week. I said, not next week. He was winding me up because what he did. And not next week, now. So he was as good as his word. That was the Tuesday. He went in on Tuesday evening because he was on the governor, so he goes, and he shifted him out, put him in the solitary confinement block, and said to him, Dr. Johnson will come and see you in the morning. He will report to me, and I will decide what happens next. Now the bureaucracy with C-wing admissions was just horrendous, and he was just cutting all the red tape. So the next Wednesday morning, the meeting of the admins, he called me over. He told me they'd done this, and if you go and see him, then you report to me. And so I went to see him. No, I didn't. But I went to the C-wing in my office, doing my papers and stuff, and there's a knock on the door, and 3 prisoners came in and said, he should really be back here, you know. One chap was in his 50s. He said, I see myself as 20 years ago, and if he goes through the rest of his life sentence having threatened to kill a psychiatrist, it'll be hell. So I said, oh yeah, he should really come back. But there was no arm twisting. It was just 3 of them. These are unempathetic psychopaths who aren't interested in anything. They were concerned about him. So I cleared up my paperwork and went to the sec unit, and I got 2 robust officers either side. And what happens is you open the door, and they hear the doors open. They rush out and grab you see. So it's like they sort of stood back. I opened the door, and they're sitting on the cell bed, crestfallen. So I went and sat next to him. He said, I shouldn't have done that. I need to be back in the C-wing. So I said, well, I'll report to the deputy governor, and he will decide whether to come back or not. So I did, and he did, and then we continued. Probably 6-9 months later, he reports a visit of his mother, and I've put the dialogue in the book. It's just astonishing. His mother says, according to him, you've changed. There's a seriousness in your face now. Not all teenager anymore. I have to respect you more. I have to admit that I've been too close and I've mothered you too much and this sort of stuff, so it's partly my fault, but you're different. I can get on with my life now. And Alec himself said, I've given up violence. I don't need violence anymore. Oh, if somebody attacks me, I would defend myself, but I'm not planning anymore. So I've saved death every 2 years.
Wow.
And in fact, I met Lord Ramsbottom, the ex-prison inspector, at a House of Lords meeting one time. And I said, I'm writing this book. I'm thinking of writing a book in which I claim to have saved over a dozen lives. He said, I'm sure you have. But unfortunately, he wasn't in office anymore, and the support I've had from the establishment is zero.
Well, the policy is opposite, isn't it?
Yes, it is. You just lock them up, and
it's a popular thing. Yeah.
So there were 2 other occasions when killers planned to kill you?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.